All right. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to this bonus session of maximizing your IM profits. And if you can hear me, please put a Y in the question box. I'm going to be kind of brief, but I think this is going to be very helpful to some people. I'm going to give you some things that maybe you might haven't thought about because it's going to be so strange because it's just my way of looking at the world. Okay, thank you, Cletus. So I know that I can be heard. And just want to say good evening, everybody. I know that it's a little late. I just got back from the meeting with with the priest here. So we're going to get into a few things. I'm not going to delay, and let's just go ahead and get started. I'm going to just kind of make sure that my presentation is working the way it should be, and then we will go ahead and get started. And let's see, I'm going to pick it up from the last time. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, so the last time we got together, what I talked about was the fact that if you have you're looking at your hard drive and you're seeing a number of internet marketing products and you're thinking, well, what can I do with them? And what is it that I can do to either start making money immediately or at least start getting on the track for it? And we noticed that, a number of us, and it's a common practice that, we'll buy things and we definitely have a need for them. But sometimes, when we see them all together, we start to get discouraged because it looks like we're not really making any progress and we're only just buying things. And so I want to try to give you a little something to prime the pump this week. And I know that you all are probably working on a business model, and certainly you want to keep working on that. And what I want to encourage you in, the first of all, is that if you're working on a particular business model and you don't see it happen and come to fruition and really take off immediately, then you are one of the, I'd say you're one of the 90% of small business owners, right? No business, just because, you see people come with an instant method and then you buy an information product and it's supposed to work in about 3 months and some people have been able to make it work, doesn't mean that you're doing a bad thing and you haven't been able to make it work. Right? If you're really trying to establish a brand and a business and trying to establish a product line, all those things take time. Now, yes, it takes steady work. Yes, it does take being pressed about it. Yes, it does really require you to really be, really dedicated and focused on it. But the fact of the matter is, all that's going to take time. So if you're looking at your hard drive and you're thinking, I'm building up this reserve of things, they're not using them, don't worry about that. What you want to worry about are going to be some of the things that, first of all, that I talked about in the 30-day challenge. And again, I want to encourage you, if you haven't picked up the 30-day challenge, you haven't gone through it, right? Even if you picked it up and you haven't gone through it, go through it, because I really do try to lay out the foundation for internet marketing in it. And so yesterday we talked about the fact that you got a bunch of stuff. One of the things you could do is add a service. And there at the end, we talked about the fact that if you've got a skill of some kind, you can offer that skill. You're going to need to just make sure that you've got the equipment to offer that skill. Right, and that you need to be able to do that at a reasonable price. Typically, one of the best ways to do that is to get the leverage of someone who's already got a standing in the industry, somebody who's already got a list, somebody who's already got a product line. You can offer that service. And again, I'm telling you this from experience because I've seen it work over and over again, and this is something that I've done. Okay, and then you need to have something that you can offer to the person who's going to give you the leverage. You need to offer something to them, right? Maybe you're going to offer them to do their webinars. Maybe you're going to do some writing for them. Maybe you're going to do something to make their business work. Maybe you're going to come in there and you're going to do some things, and then in exchange, you're going to make it so easy for them to do business with you that they are going to want to. And again, we talked about that yesterday. If you got a bunch of stuff on your hard drive and you're trying to get something going, it doesn't really seem like you're really making any traction, you can offer a service. Doesn't mean you're gonna live at making a service. Doesn't mean that you're gonna stay there forever in your internet marketing business. But one way to just get things going is to offer service. You're gonna need to be known for something, right? You want to be known for the service that you offer. You want to be known for doing the thing that is special to you, right? And of course, lastly, we talked about this yesterday, that most importantly, you want to know how to say no. You don't want to fill up your calendar, right? You don't want to fill up your calendar with doing the service when it's been your intent to be involved in internet marketing so that you could build a passive business that you could walk away from, or that could put you on vacation, not one that was going to lock you into it. Right. So certainly you want to be able to do this when you just got to make something happen. You've got your back against the wall. But ultimately, your goal is not to do this service. It's not to do these things forever. It's really so that you can put yourself in a position to build that business where you can do that. So that means that you have to say no to some things, right? You have to say no. You just can't say yes to every service, service arrangement that comes to you. Right? When you're good at what you do, you're going to get them, and people are going to come to you, and they're going to ask you to do it at an inopportune time, and you're going to need to say no, right? Sometimes, right? So that's what we talked about yesterday. That's sort of where we ended, and in this bonus mini section, right, of maximizing your IEM products, it's a bonus session because it's technically not going to be on the products that you're talking about, but it is going to be related. Right. So, and this is something that I've done before. So once again, I'm not telling you something that's theory. I'm telling you something that has worked. It's working for other people, and you can easily employ it. And when you start to see it, you probably will figure out that it's something that you've thought of doing before. You just haven't done it. Right. It's probably something that you thought about and that you maybe even started doing, but you just maybe didn't follow through. Now, what we're dealing with in this 5-day series is what can you do with the products that you already have. So we're not talking about going out and buying new products to make the old products work, right? We're talking about you've got products in your hard drive. What can you do right now, right, to make them work? And what we're talking about here is something, as I said, that's related. Right now, the 5 sessions I'm going to be talking about what you can do with those products, but this is a related session. It's not exactly that. And one of the things, and one of the things I want to encourage you, right, to do is to start looking at some of the webinars you've attended, right? Go back through your email, go back through some of the emails you may have deleted, some of the ones you've got saved, stuff where you've bought stuff in particular. Those are even the best ones. I want you to start looking at some of the webinars you have attended. And when you do that, you have to understand that in any webinar that's designed to sell you something, and most of them are, right? The sales process is that the content is always going to be true, right? People know that you're not going to buy anything if people are going to give you unclear content on the webinar. So most of the content on the webinar is some of the best because people want to get you on the hook to buy more stuff, right? And so content on a webinar is typically probably some of the best you're going to find. People are going to present it dynamically, and they're going to present it, and it's going to be true, right? You might have to check it out, but generally it's going to be true. And typically, what happens on the webinar? What's the rule of thumb? What's the standing rule of thumb? You learn what to do, but you don't learn how to do it, right? How many of you all have seen that pattern on a webinar where you get fantastic content on what to do? Right? If you've seen that, please put the number 1 in the question box. You've seen fantastic instruction on what to do, and then the how-to, right? That's what you buy, right? That's what's being sold, right? You've come to the webinar for. That's what the offer is going to be about, right? And so you've seen that pattern, and so what you want to consider about that. So what do you do about that? Right. So what do? You start looking at some of these webinars that you've been attending. You start looking at some of the webinars that you have. You start looking at some of the webinars that you've been invited to. And so what do you do? Right. What do you do with those webinars? Well, and here's where the strategy starts. Okay. Now, instead of going out and trying to find the perfect product idea, I want you to narrow your focus. Right? I want you to narrow your focus to looking at some of the most popular webinars that have been going. Why do I say that? Because if a webinar is popular, and you've seen it 2 or 3 times, a guy or a lady is running that webinar because it's making them money. Right. And so something they're doing on that webinar, something that they're talking about is resonating with people. And that's probably going to be one of the best subjects in the world for you to start thinking about how you can design something that will sell to people in a way that they want it. Okay. Just start by looking at the webinars you've attended over the last month. Just look at them. What's the subject of them? What got talked about? What were they trying to sell? What problem were they trying to solve? Which are the best webinars that you've been on for the last month? What made them good? And here's what's important, right? Every webinar that eventually sells something, they solve some real problem or real or perceived problem. They solved the problem that people thought they had. It was real to them, and they solved the problem. And you want to be able to answer. Right? You don't have to go back and watch them all. That's not what I'm talking about. I just want you to go back and look at them, the ones that you've already put on, and say, which one of these webinars really did solve a real problem? Because if it solved a real problem, you and I will probably, even if the only reason we didn't buy is because we didn't either want it, we just didn't have the money, right? If they really solved a real problem. Okay. And so the question you want to be able to answer about that webinar is, what are the alternatives to solving the problem the way that their product does? What are the alternatives to solving the problem the way their service does, right? The webinars, again, this is specific, talking about what kind of product you're going to launch. You're going to narrow this down, right? You're not talking about trying to solve create a product on everything, just on the ones that will show you how to solve a particular problem. And webinars that try to sell you a solution typically are solving a specific problem. You can start with some of those webinars. And one of the things that you can ask is, who else knows how to solve this problem? Right? Who else in the marketplace can you bring to a situation, right, that will show people how to solve this problem? Whatever has been on this webinar, right? The webinar is designed to bring your attention to a problem that you probably have. And if you stayed on that webinar, you probably do have the problem. So how do you solve it? And so who else knows how to solve that problem? You want to be able to answer that. Now the question is going to be, once you understand that, what can you bring to market as a result of that webinar? Basically solving the same problem. Right? Whatever webinar is really selling, you can guarantee it's solving a problem that people think they have. Right? So the question is going to be, what can you bring to market that can help people to solve the same problem? Can you bring experts to the marketplace? And can you do an interview product? Can you do a case study? Can you do some kind of product where you're going to have people, experts in solving the problem, to help people, right, in their attempt to try to get to the promised land? Okay, can you automate the solution, right? So maybe, on this webinar, it's a home study course, and this is what got sold. But can you design a piece of software that'll solve this problem? Can you design something? Now, again, I know I don't even have time to go through software design, but if you get started by trying to figure out and sketching out, what would it look like if I automated the solution to this problem? What would it look like? Right? Because if you can sketch out an automation solution, you can have somebody build it. Now, is there a workaround? Can you bring a workaround to this problem that the webinars are solving? Can you bring a workaround? Can you bring a content product? Right? This is where some of your PLR comes in. Do people want to know about it? Can you bring some kind of PLR video? What can you bring to the market that will help people with this problem? Okay, can you bring a new tool to the market, right? Can you bring different tools that you have combined or that you've put together that will help people to solve the problem? Can you teach them, right? So maybe you're teaching them a different aspect of it. Can you help them with the problem that the webinar is solving? Do you know how to solve it? Do you know how to solve it in a way that's different than the webinar was selling? Can you sell your own solution? Right now, we talked about this yesterday. Can you create a service, right? So in other words, the webinar is talking about something that that people want to have solved. Well, can you create a service where you're actually going in and doing it for them, right? DFY, you were doing the service in order to help them to solve this particular problem. Okay, and we start talking about different kind of formulas, right? Your formula is, can you create something? Can you create a cheaper way to solve the problem? Can you create an easier way to solve the problem? Can you create a more effective way to solve the problem? And again, when something is already on the market and there's a webinar to sell it, the webinar will give you clues. It will give you clues. And what are you listening for? You're listening for, what's the main problem they're solving? Why are they running this webinar over and over again? What's making it sell? And what's typically making it sell is that the webinar is selling them a benefit to a problem that people think they have. Right? Are you with me? So if you understand what I'm saying so far, please put number 2 in the question box. Right? If you understand what I'm saying. So the webinar, right, that you attend, you've already attended this webinar. You've already taken notes. You've already almost bought something from it. What you want to do with that webinar content now is figure out what problem are they solving, and then figuring out what you can bring to the market to solve the same problem. And again, it seems difficult, but when you don't, when all you've got are these webinars you've already attended, I'm not talking about going out and buying anything. I'm talking about listening to something that you've already heard and really trying to design, okay, you know what, how are they solving the problem? How can I solve it? Right? Because the common thing is not their solution. The common thing is the problem. Right? That's the problem that people are trying to solve. Now, where and how are you going to launch it? Right? How are you going to launch it? Where are you going to launch it? How are you going to put down roots with it? Well, whoever did the webinar, you can actually, again, just as you would with an affiliate, you can actually offer them the service, right? So whoever's hosting the webinar, if you have a setup service, then, one of the ways you're going to be able to do is solve the problem. Now, you can go to the vendor. You can also go to Facebook groups, right? Facebook groups where the product typically solved a problem, but then you're going to help people in a different kind of way, and you can find them in Facebook groups. Now, here's something that you may or may not have thought of, right? You may or may not have thought of, and I wouldn't have thought of this unless I experienced it, and I did. Okay, if you look inside of multi-level marketing companies, multi-level marketing leaders, right? One of the things that they like to be able to do is train their people. Right? They like to be able to train their people. They like to give their people done for you things. They like to be able to give their people, right, things that will help them. And the question is whether or not, right, you know what their problems are well enough that you can design something, right? That you can design something. So if you're talking about where you're going to launch your product, one of the best places to launch it is as an MLM trainer. And you don't have to be an expert all the time in developing AM. You can be just the expert in internet marketing. Right now, LinkedIn groups are the same as Facebook meetups, right? As well as networking groups offline, right? As well as networking groups offline. And so what the strategy is here is looking through the webinars. This doesn't have to take you 30 minutes, right? It should take you 30 minutes. And you just want to start noting down, what are the problems people are solving? What does a webinar solve, right? Even if you didn't buy the product, and it's not even important that you did. What's important is understanding the problem. And so as you get on a sales webinar, right, do not be afraid of the sales webinar. You get on a sales webinar and you ask yourself every time now, what is the problem that the webinar is solving? How then can I solve it? Right? Can I solve it with something? Can I create something to solve that problem in a different way? Right? What is the problem that it's being solved? If you learn how to, again, being disciplined in watching webinars is hard to do, but it's worth it. Right? And you can do it. I'm telling you, if I can do this, you can watch the webinar and just start thinking and envisioning how you can solve this problem in a different way that's better for the customer. Okay. So now it's about 10:22, and that's really all I really wanted to do is go through in this bonus session. So just give you some things to think about. If you have any questions, please go ahead and ask them now. If you have any questions about what I shared just now, right? Any questions? I'm going to turn off my screen share here. Any questions? Okay, I'm going to leave the link for the 30-day challenge. And again, once again, it's going to be available for the next 5 days. Use the code at checkout 5day, right? And then you'll get a great price there. So any questions? Any questions? Okay, now tomorrow, what we're going to do is we're going to get back to our series. This is related. It's a bonus session and it's related, but it's not exactly the session. So tomorrow, we're going to get back to the products you already have on your hard drive and how you can maximize them. So again, just to recap, in step 1, we talked about creating a service. Step 2 now, right, we're talking about here, we're talking about here attending the webinars and looking at some of the webinars you've attended as problems to be solved and products to be created. Okay, obviously we're not talking about copying. That's not what we want to do. Okay, so are there any questions at all? Okay, everybody. Well, thank you very much for being here. Once again, it's superfastactionbonus.com/30day. Use the code number 5day. So have a great day and a pleasant tomorrow. Take care.